हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So we were discussing the second chapter of the Gita. Let me share my screen quickly. Okay. Is everyone able to see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
All right. Let's recite this verse. You can repeat after me. This is Chaita Dividamaha Kataran Nagariyo.
न चैतद्विद्मः कतरन्नो गरीयो
Yadva Jayema Yadivano Jayeyu.
यद्वा न जयेम यदिवा न जयेयु
Yaneva Hatavana Jiji Vishamas.
यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामस्
Te Avastitha Pramukhe Dhartarashtraha.
तेव स्थिता प्रमुखे धातराष्ट्रा
न चैतद विद्मः कतरन् नो गरियो
नैतद्विद्मः कतरन् गरीयो
यद्वा जयेम यदि वा नो जयेयु
यद्वा जयेम यदिवा न जयेयु
यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामस्
यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामस्
ते अवस्थिताः प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्रः
तेव्य स्थिता प्रमुखे राष्ट्रा
न चैतद विद्मः कतरन् न गरियो
न चैतद्विद्मः कतरन् गरीयो
यद्वा जयेम यदि वा नो जयेयु
यद्वा न जयेम यदिवा न जयेयु
यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामस्
यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामस्
ते अवस्थिताः प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्रः
तेव स्थिता प्रमुखे धातराष्ट्राः
Anyone else would like to recite?
नाचेतद्विद्मा कतरन्नो गरियो
न चैतद्विद्मः
कतरन्नो गरियो
यद्वा जयामा यदि वा न जयो
यद्वा जयेम यदि वा नो जयेयु
यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामस्
यानेव
एव हत्वा न जिजीविषामस्
ते अवस्थिता प्रमुखे धातराष्ट्रा
तेव स्थिता प्रमुखे
धार्तराष्ट्रः
न चैतद्विद्मः कतरन्नो गरीयो
चैतद्विद्मः कतरन्नो गरियो
यद्वा जयेम यदि वा नो जयेयु
यद्मा जयेयु यदि वा नो जयेयु
यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामस्
यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामस्
तेव स्थिता प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्रा
ते अवस्थिता प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्रः
नैचित्तद्विदुमो कुर्म नो गरियो
न चैतद्विद्मः कतरन्न गरियो
यद्वा जयेम यदि वा नो जयेयो
यद्वा जयेम यदि वा नो जयेयु
यन् एव हत्वा न जिजीविषामस्
यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामस्
ते वस्थिता परमुखे दर्शत्रस्तदा
तेव स्थिता प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्राः
न चैतद्विद्मः कतरन्नो गरियो
न
न चैतद्विद्मः
चैतद्विद्मः
कतरन्न गरियो
यद्वा जयेम यदि वा न जयेयु
यद्वा जयेम यदि वा नो जयेयुः
यान एव हत्वा न जिजीविषामः
यानेव
यानेव
हत्वा न
हत्वा
जिजीविषामः
देवैषशिष्टाः प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्रा
ते अवस्थितः
प्रमुखे
प्रमुखराष्ट्राः
दार्तराष्ट्राः
Oh, sorry. You say it.
You say Mataji.
Okay, thank you. Na chaitat vidma katarannagariyo
न चैतद्विद्मः कतरन्नगरीयो
yadva jayema jadiba no jayeyuh
यद्वा जयेम यदि वा नो जयेयुः
janeva hatva na jijibishama
यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामः
te avasthitah pramukhe dhatrashtra
ते अवस्थितः प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्राः Anyone else?
Go ahead, Tulsi.
Nachidvam Katarannagariyo.
Na
न
chaitad
चैतद्विद्मः कतरन्नगरीयो
Vajamaya Divana Jayu.
यद्वा यदि वा नो जयेयुः
Yani Vahatva Najijivishamas.
यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामः
Te Vishista Pramukhe Dhritarashtra.
ते अवस्थितः प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्राः
Good job.
Okay, let's recite the synonyms. Na,
Na.
No.
nor,
nor
No.
cha,
cha
also,
Also.
etat,
Etat.
this,
This.
vidmah,
Vidma.
do we know,
Do we know?
no
katarat,
Katarat.
which,
Which.
Which.
na
for
Na.
us,
for us
Yes.
gariyah,
Gariya.
better,
Better
yatva,
Yatva
Wa.
whether,
Weather
jayema,
Jayema
we may conquer,
We may conquer.
yadi,
Yadi.
if,
If.
va,
Va.
or,
Or.
naha,
Naha
us,
Us.
Us.
jayeyu,
Jayu.
they conquer,
They
They
conquer
conquer.
yan,
Yan.
those who,
Those who.
eva,
Eva.
certainly,
certainly
hatva,
Hatva.
by killing,
by killing
na,
No.
No.
never,
Never.
Never.
jijivishamaha,
Jijivishama.
we would want to live,
We would
We
want
would
to
want to
Want to
live.
live.
they,
they
all of them,
all of them
All of them.
avasthitah,
Avastitaha
are situated,
Are
situated
situated.
pramukhe,
Pramukhe
Okay.
in the front,
in the front
dhartarashtra,
Rashtra
the sons of dhritarashtra.
the sons of
Dhritarashtra.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we killed the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live. Yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield. Purport. Arjuna did not know whether he should fight and risk unnecessary violence, although fighting is the duty of the Kshatriyas, or whether he should refrain and live by begging. If he did not conquer the enemy, begging would be his only means of subsistence. Nor was there certainty of victory, because either side might emerge victorious. Even if victory awaited them and their cause was justified, still, if the sons of Dhritarashtra died in the battle, it would be very difficult to live in their absence. Under the circumstances, that would be another kind of defeat for them. All these considerations by Arjuna definitely proved that not only was he a great devotee of the Lord, but he was also highly enlightened and had complete control over his mind and senses. His desire to live by begging, although he was born in the royal household, is another sign of detachment. He was truly virtuous, as these qualities, combined with his faith in the words of instruction of Sri Krishna, his spiritual master, indicate. It is concluded that Arjuna was quite fit for liberation. Unless the senses are controlled, there is no chance of elevation to the platform of knowledge. And without knowledge and devotion, there is no chance of liberation. Arjuna was competent in all these attributes, over and above his enormous attributes in his material relationships. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisheshi Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshutarine. I read the translation one more time. Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we killed the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live. Yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield. So we are discussing the second chapter of the Gita. And as we know, second chapter is called the contents of the Gita summarized. So there are so actually the name in the Sanskrit is Gita Sar. It is basically so Sar means it may mean essence or it may mean summarization. So here Prabhupada uses the translation as summarized. So second chapter is one of the longest chapters of the Gita, and actually it is one of the most important chapters of the Gita also. Now we may say which chapter of the Gita is not important. So that is true. Actually, every chapter is very important. But the point is that actually Krishna summarizes the whole Gita in the second chapter. So all the concepts that will be later talked about in the Gita, actually Krishna lays the foundation of those concepts in the second chapter itself. And here itself, Krishna tells Arjuna what is to be done and what is not to be done, what is best for him. But the way Gita grows, and as we will see, is in the third chapter, in the first verse, Arjuna starts with a question again. He was very confused because the word Shanti is used many times towards the end of the second chapter, and that kind of confuses Arjuna because he was thinking if there has to be Shanti, then how could there be fighting? So we'll see when we come to that. But we know that many different acharyas have commented on the Gita, and different acharyas have used different names for this chapter. Now, before that, actually, there is one more chapter where actually Krishna summarizes the whole Gita again, and that is the 18th chapter. But there, the context is a little different. He kinds of gives a kind of a yoga ladder over there in the 18th chapter of the Gita. And 18th chapter is the longest chapter of the Gita. There are 78 verses in the 18th chapter. But the philosophical discussion concludes in the 66th verse of the 18th chapter, where Krishna says, Saradharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. So 67th onwards, then Krishna gives the Falishruti, if this knowledge should not be given to these people, and if you just read this knowledge. So he gives the Falishruti, and that also concludes in the 73rd verse. And then actually Krishna asks a question to Arjuna, have you heard this attentively? I can repeat the whole message again if you have not heard it. So then Arjuna replies to Krishna, and then 74th verse onwards, Sanjay speaks, 74, 75, 76, 77, and 78. These are the 5 verses spoken by Sanjay. So in one sense, second chapter is the longest. If we consider that 18th chapter, the philosophical part of the 18th chapter ends at the 66th verse of the Gita. So, so there are different names used by different acharyas. So Prabhupada uses Gita Sar, contents of the Gita summarized. Now Chakravarti Pad actually uses another name for this chapter in his commentary. He uses the title as Atma Anatma Vivek Yoga. So we will see that how Krishna will distinguish between body and the soul. He will. We know that the whole discussion will come. What is the difference between body and soul? So Atma means spirit, Anatma means one which is not spirit, that is matter. The opposite of Atma is matter. So Atma, Anatma, Vivek. Vivek means buddhi or intelligence or the power to discriminate. So how do we discriminate between Atma and Anatma, between matter and spirit. That intelligence will be described in the second chapter. That is how Chakravarti Path names this chapter. Now, Baldev Vidyabhushan, in his Gita Bhushan commentary, he names this chapter as Sankhya Yoga. So Sankhya means analysis. So actually, Krishna is doing analysis over here in this chapter. In the second chapter, we'll see that when we read the verses, the further verses where Krishna starts speaking, 2.11 onwards. Excuse me. So as we know in our
Who calls it Sankhya Yoga, you said?
Baldev Vidyabhushan.
Okay, thank you.
So in our Sampradaya, actually, Sridhar Swami, although he is not officially in the Sampradaya, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu credits him for his commentary on the Bhagavatam. So unofficially, he's in our Sampradaya because that's how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu considers. So he has written a commentary on the Gita, which is known as Subhodhini. Now, after Sridhar Swami, the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself and even the 6 Goswamis did not directly comment on the Gita, but although they, they have referenced Gita multiple times in various at various different places. We can read that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita also. Then after that, the first official commentary by official Acharya in our Sampradaya was given by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, which is known as Sararth Varshini. And then after that, Baldev Vidyabhushan gives the commentary, which is called Gita Bhushan. Now, after Baldev Vidyabhushan, we see that Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually wrote 2 different commentaries on the Gita. They are not exactly verse by verse commentaries. So in the first commentary, he wrote commentaries on few verses of the Gita, and the second time he wrote few other verses, a commentary on few other verses, and those 2 actually commentaries have been combined together. So that is known as Rasik Ranjan, and there in the Rasik Ranjan commentary, Bhaktivinoda Thakur uses this title, Gita Sar, contents of the Gita summarized. And this is what Srila Prabhupada describes in the 72nd verse, in his commentary of 72nd verse of the second chapter, that, Bhaktivinoda Thakur calls this chapter as contents of the Gita summarized. So now this is a very important chapter in one sense. We can understand by the names that is given, the names that are given by different acharyas for this chapter. Now the Sankhya Yoga name that is given by Baldev Vidyabhushan, that also is the name of the second chapter in the Gita Press version of the Bhagavad Gita. I don't know who is the author, but that is sometimes considered to be standard because many people consider Gita Press as the standard commentary. Now we know that going further in the second chapter, so the first chapter, the 46th verse ended with Arjuna saying, actually not Arjuna, but I think the verse that comes is said, it is spoken by Sanjay. He says, Visrajya sasaram chapam shoka samvigna manasaha. So he basically sasaram and chapam. So saram is the arrows and chapam is the bow. So Arjuna has given up his bow and arrows. And shok samvigna manasaha, he's lamenting and he's very distressed. Samvigna means distressed, and manasaha, his mind is filled with distress and lamentation. So that is how the first chapter ended. And we see that the second chapter also kinds of starts on the same theme. The key word that comes there is Ashru Purnakshu Lekshanam. Ashru are the tears, and Purnakshu Lekshanam. So his eyes, Ikshanam are eyes, they are full of tears. It is filled with tears to the brim, and it is a very pitiable situation in one sense for a Kshatriya to cry on the battlefield. There is, just imagine if there is a wrestling match that is going to happen between, say, the star wrestler of USA and the star wrestler of Russia. And then the wrestler there, the USA wrestler, they start going there. He goes there and he starts crying over there. I don't want to wrestle, and that would be such a shame. So it's a very pitiable situation for a Kshatriya to cry on the battlefield. Kshatriyas are meant to make others cry, to make their enemies cry. They are not supposed to cry. They are, characterized with manliness, valor. So here Arjuna is showing completely opposite symptoms. And then when Krishna sees that, he is not happy. He say the first words that he speak in the second chapter is, he says kutas, what is that verse? Kutastva kashmalam idam vishame samupasthitam. So where have these, kashmalam means impurities, and vishame samupasthitam, at this time of calamity, how have these impurities come upon you? And then Krishna says, actually, he says three things. He says, anarya jushtam, aswargam, and akirti karma Arjuna. He says that this is anarya. This does not behoove you. An arya, Prabhupada describes the arya as a person who knows the value of the life, the principles of life. So he says that you are arya and you are acting like as an anarya. And then he says, aswargyam. Aswargyam means this will not lead you to heavenly planets. So Mahabharat, standard, and Krishna also starts with the Karmakandi explanations. When he starts speaking the philosophy, he starts with the Karmakandi explanation first. So he says that, actually, if you win this war, then you will get the flourishing kingdom to enjoy. And even if you lose this war, you will go to the heavenly planets and enjoy over there. So he says it's a win-win situation for you. There is nothing to lose. So this is like a Karmakandi explanation, that here also you will enjoy, there also you will enjoy. So what is there to lose? Just get up and fight. That's how Krishna starts the Gita. Later he says that, don't worry about victory or defeat. That's not how. So he basically talks about Karma Yoga later on. So from Karma Kand he goes to Karma Yoga. So here he is kind of giving like Karma Kandi explanation. Aswargyam, it will not lead you to heavenly planets. And Akirtikaram Arjuna, he says that actually this will give you infamy. So in this life it will give you infamy, and in the next life it will not lead you to a higher destination. That's how Krishna starts. In the next verse that Krishna speaks, it is like a verbal slap to Arjuna. So far Krishna has not started speaking philosophy to Arjuna, because Arjuna has not yet surrendered to Krishna. So he is still speaking at the level of a friend, and sometimes friends, they, if they want to motivate other friend, they uses sarcasm also sometimes. So he says klabhyam ma samah partha, excuse me. So he uses two very strong words over there, klabhyam, and then he says shudram hridaya dorbalyam. So klabhyam means eunuch, one who is third gender actually. And for a Kshatriya to be called a klebya, it is like a verbal slap. Kshatriyas are characterized by malliness, both in terms of physical potency and sexual potency. They are very powerful physically, and even sexually they are considered to be very virile. They can, get a lot of children. So this is like, Krishna is trying to entice Arjuna by using sarcasm. And then actually this also goes back to the Agyatwas, the incognito period that was there, right? So there, what happened was, we know that for 1 full year, Arjuna had to live as Vrahanalla. So Vrahanalla is like a eunuch. So we know that there is a curse that was given to him by one of the heavenly damsels, that you will become a eunuch, and then Indra intervenes, and then he kinds of reduces the period to 1 year. And then on top of that, Indra gets this benediction to Arjuna that, you can use this 1 year period whenever you like. So Arjuna uses this, one way it is a curse and a benediction also. So Arjuna uses this curse at the time of the incognito period. But for Arjuna is not just an ordinary Kshatriya. He was the best of the Kshatriyas. There was no one who could compete with Arjuna. So he was like an epitome of manliness, and to become a eunuch, that was a very bad memory on his mind. And Krishna, he kinds of triggers that memory in Arjuna, that you had acted as a eunuch. Have you actually become a eunuch? That's how Krishna is putting this. That's how Acharya has explained. So, and Arjuna is triggered by this. And then other thing that he says is Shudram. You are acting like a Shudra, but to compensate, he says Parantapa, Tyakto Tishtha Parantapa. Give up these impurities and Utishtha, rise and fight. Parantapa, you are the chastiser of enemies. So that's how Krishna starts the discussion. So it's like a pep talk, just give up these kind of, negative things. Just get up and do what you are supposed to do. And then actually Arjuna speaks again after that. So he says, Katham Bhishmam Aham Sankhye Dronam cha Madhusudana Ishubhi Pratiyoshyami Pujarva Harisudanam. So he says actually, now how am I supposed to throw arrows on Bhishma and Drona? They are Ishubhi Pratishyami Pujarva. No, they are worthy of my puja. They are worthy of my worship. No, and then he says, Prabhupada also explains in the purport, Madhusudana and Arisudana. So now Madhusudana has two meanings. Madhu was one of the demons, we know that, and that's how Krishna is called Madhusudana, because he had killed Madhu, who was a demon. But Madhu is also an ancestor of a distant ancestor of uh, Krishna. So we know that Vrishni was the great grandfather of Vasudev. So and Vrishni's father was Madhu. So that's how Krishna is sometimes also called as Varshne. So he is a descendant of Vrishni. That's how Varshne comes. So he says, actually, you are a killer of Madhu, who is a demon. Arisudana. Arisudana means enemy, killer of the enemy. You are not a killer of your own kinsmen, your own ancestors. Madhu is also an ancestor. So can you kill your ancestors? Can you kill your grandsire? Can you kill your guru? Sandipini Muni, that's how Prabhupada also explains in the purport. If you cannot do that, you are Arisudana, you kill your enemies. How do you expect me to kill my own, guru and my grandfather? They're worthy of my worship. So that's one of the arguments that is given by Arjuna. So when Krishna speaks this like a sarcastic statement to Arjuna, Arjuna is trying to counter it. That, I'm not a klebya, I'm just giving you a very valid explanation. That's how Arjuna puts it here in 2.4. And then 2.5, he says, Guru Nahatva hi Mahanubhavan. So he says, Mahanubhavan. He is my guru and he is Mahanubhavan. Now, Krishna can put an argument that actually he is not your guru, he is not an elevated personality. He has taken shelter of sinful activities. So to counter that, Arjuna is using Mahanubhavan. So how is he a Mahanubhava? How is Bhishma Mahanubhava? He says actually he has conquered lust and time. So he has conquered lust because he has taken a very fearsome vow that I will not marry. I'll remain a celibate throughout my life. And because he has this Ichha Mrityu, that he can die at any time as he like. So he has conquered time also, and therefore he's a Mahanubhavan. Now, Arjuna may say that, but Mahabharat itself, it is described in the Mahabharat that the guru can be given up if he do not act properly. And I think Pyari Prabhu also mentioned it yesterday. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary, he describes that verse that comes in the Mahabharat. He says, Guru apyaliptasya karya karyam ajanataha utpat pranipartasya parityago vidhiyate. He says that reject the guru if three things it is mentioned in the Mahabharata. If the guru is proud, he doesn't know the proper behavior, and he says that if he indulges in sinful life, if these three things are there, then the guru can be given up. So the scriptures tells us that we should accept guru and what should be the qualifications of guru, and the scriptures also tells us when the guru can be given up. And actually, if we read Mahabharata itself, just before the war that is fought, Yudhishthir goes to Bhishma and then he asks that, why are you fighting on the side of Kauravas? So at that time, Bhishma Dev, he speaks a very nice verse. He says, Artho asya purusho daso, dasyo tu artha kasyachit, dasyo tu artha na kasyachit, iti satyam maharajo baddho asmi arthe na kauravai. He says actually, all the purushas, all the people, they become the dasa of artha. Dasa means servant of wealth. But the wealth does not become servant of anything. And he says, Iti Satyam Maharajo. This is true, O Maharaj, O Yudhishthir, that I have become I've become bound by the wealth of the Kauravas. Although he's speaking it in a sarcastic way, because and everybody knows the internal reason why he has to fight on the sides of the Kauravas, but he speaks this verse actually. It's a very nice verse. We can also meditate on this verse. One becomes the servant of wealth, but the wealth doesn't become servant of anyone. Is everyone able to hear me?
Yes, Prabhu. What is this verse number, Prabhu?
Okay. Verse number. I don't have the verse number, Mataji. This is quoted in the commentary, but there is no verse number given. It is mentioned. I think it comes in the Bhishma Parva of Mahabharata, but I don't have the number.
Okay, Prabhu, no problem. And what are the three principles of Guru you were talking, Prabhu? Can you repeat that one more time, please? To consider it.
The Guru is proud if he in. Oh, to consider a Guru, that is given in the.
Point.
It's not given in the Mahabharata, but it is given in what is Nectar of Instruction.
Okay.
The first verse gives the qualifications of a Guru, when a Guru can be accepted. So, but when a Guru can be rejected, that is given in the Mahabharata. That's what I mentioned, Mataji.
Yeah,
So
that's what when the Guru is
Yeah,
rejected.
so the three things rejected is mentioned when the Guru is proud, when the Guru doesn't know the proper behavior, and when the Guru indulges in sinful life, sinful activities, then he can be rejected. That's how it is mentioned in the Mahabharata.
Okay.
So coming back to 2.6 that we were discussing, na chaitya vidma kataranno gariyo yadva jayeyu yadivano jayeyu yaneva hatvana jiji vishamaste avasthita pramukhe dharta rashtraha. So actually here it says, nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we killed the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live. Yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield. So actually here Arjuna gives the fifth reason for not fighting the war. And he basically, in the previous verses, if you see, he had given three options. And here also he is talking about the two options he is talking about here. He says one option is to kill them. Another option is to get killed by them. And the third option that he had described in the previous verse was to become a beggar, and just beg for alms. But he himself is saying in the next verse, he will say that actually none of these options are palatable for him. So neither he want to kill them, neither he want to get killed by them, and neither he wants to actually beg for alms. But what's happening is, so he will kind of surrender to Krishna, because none of the options seem to be like a good option to him. So we know that just before the war has started, so in the Virat Parva, in the Virat, when they were living in the incognito period, these Pandavas. So at that time, when the incognito period was over, when the Kauravas came to know that, okay, they are living. So there is a Virat war that happens first. And after that, what happens is, so overpowers the entire Kuru army over there in the Virat war. And then they all get defeated and they return to Hastinapur. But later, Dhritarashtra sends Sanjay as the messenger to Yudhishthir. He's a very cunning person, as we know, Dhritarashtra. So the message that comes to Yudhishthir through Sanjay is, and Krishna happens to be there at that time, so he counters it actually at that time. So the message that comes is, the message was that actually Yudhishthir, the purpose of the life is ultimately to renounce all these worldly things and enter the Vanaprastha life. And then he says, actually, you all have been living like a Vanaprastha for last 14 years. And you have already become used to it. And ultimately, the purpose is to get used to it. Sooner or later, we all have to enter the Vanaprastha. So why do you want to come back to this Grahastha life again? And why do you want to fight this big war where so many people will be killed? Just remain in the Vanaprastha and then, continue living there. And then your life will be perfected like that. So, and then Krishna hears this. So Yudhishthir actually, he hears, he first couldn't understand why is he sending this kind of a message to me. Krishna understands the purpose. So he says that go and tell Dhritarashtra, your king, that a Kshatriya accepts only 2 alms. He doesn't beg for alms. So what Dhritarashtra was telling Yudhishthira is to continue begging alms. Although Pandavas were not practically or literally begging alms, they were subsiding on fruits and roots in the forest. But Krishna says that actually a Kshatriya accepts only 2 alms, either victory or death. So the only thing that he begs is for war. And in the war, he either accepts victory or he accepts death. So you go and tell your king whatever arm he is ready to give to us, we are ready to accept it. So he kinds of rejects that proposal that Dhritarashtra had sent. It's not a proposal as such, it was like a nonsense thing to do. So now, Madhusudan Chakravarti, he is one of the acharyas who has commented on the Gita. His commentary is known as Guda Artha Deepika. So, and sometimes he's considered to be an enigmatic person. So we know Sridhar Swami was actually, he was officially in a Advaita Sampradaya, but he was a Bhakta over there. And Madhusudana Chakravarti is also a similar personality. So he is, it is mentioned in some places that he used to be a Vaishnava earlier. And then he wanted to challenge and defeat the Mayavad philosophy. So he went to Varanasi and he, very, he basically learned the whole Advaita philosophy, Mayavad philosophy over there in Varanasi. And then later what happened is, it is described in some places that he had become a Mayavadi himself. But at some places it is described that he had not completely become a Mayavadi, because in one of his commentaries he writes that, I don't know any other truth superior to Krishna. So, but at some places he gives completely Mayavadi ideas, So in his commentary to Bhagavad Gita, which is Gudartha Deepika, he basically describes what is the purpose of the first chapter and the first few verses of the second chapter, because many of the secular commentaries of the Gita, they completely neglect the first chapter. They don't even comment on the first chapter, because they say, what is the use of the first chapter? There is some historical personalities who are there and their names are mentioned and the conch is blown. There is no philosophy that is spoken in the first chapter. So they completely neglect the first chapter. But Madhusudana Chakravarti, he says actually first chapter is very important because it establishes the qualifications of Arjuna as an ideal disciple. And then he also says that, it kinds of establishes the qualifications of a person who is qualified to receive the message of the Gita. So he describes that in verse 1.31, Shreyo Anupashyami, Arjuna speaks that I don't see any long-term benefit. Shreyo means long-term good. So he mentions that he is a long-term, he's a long-term visionary. He just doesn't look at short-term benefits. He's thinking about long-term. That's how Madhusudan Chakravarti describes. Then he says in 1.30 to 35, he says, I don't want this kingdom. I don't want to enjoy, and I don't even want the three words. So actually he says that, Arjuna is kind of exhibiting that he is very, very detached. He is detached in this life and he is detached in the next life also. He doesn't want anything good in the next life also to enjoy. In the 1.43 he says, Narke Nityam Vaso. Basically he says that there is a concept of, that after death the ancestors will go to the Narkalokas, and there they will suffer. So actually we know that the body doesn't go, the soul goes over there. So he understands that there is a soul, and then he understands the difference between body and soul. And then apahat chetasa, that is how the word comes in 1.37 and 38. So Arjuna says that actually they have been blinded by greed, but we are not blinded by greed. Apahat chetasa. So then Madhusudana Chakravarti describes that he doesn't have any greed also, And then this final verse 2.6, he says that this kinds of concludes the qualification of Arjuna, where doesn't, so basically he understands that the material life is futile. All options at the material level are futile. So he understands the futility of the material existence. In the 2.6 verse. So 5 things again he's describing as the qualification of Arjuna. He says he's a visionary. He has long-term vision. He's detached, and then he understands the difference between body and the soul. Then he is not greedy, and then he understands the futility of the material life. So these 5 things are established by Arjuna in these verses that I just mentioned. So before moving to the next verse, let me take a quick pause here and see if there are any questions, corrections, or comments about what we discussed.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji,
Yes,
in the
Mataji.
purport, Prabhuji, in the purport, it has been mentioned that there was no certainty of the victory from Arjuna's side. So I could not understand that, because we have already discussed about the signs of victory of Arjuna. So can you please enlighten us on that?
So that we are analyzing from outside when we are reading the Gita. When Arjuna is sitting there in front of Krishna, there was no certainty of victory over there. That is true, because they didn't know how to overpower Bhishma and Drona, and they understood that actually unless Bhishma and Drona are overpowered, we cannot defeat them. And they had once gone to Bhishma to ask him, how would we be able to win this war if you are there in the war? So at that time, Bhishma just says that when the time comes, I'll tell you how to overpower me. And then he kinds of leaves it at that. Later on the 6th or 7th day, they go to Bhishma and then they ask them again that how can we win this war? Please help us. And at that time, Bhishma tells, the secret of how to conquer him. So until that time, there was no certainty that, that they will win the war. So when we are reading the Gita, we can analyze these signs of victory that are described. But when Arjuna was there right in the battlefield, he couldn't know, although in the 11th chapter, then Krishna says, Tasmat Tamatishta Yasholabhasva Jitva Shatrun Bhungshva Raja Samradha Mai Vaite Nihata Purvamaiva Nimitta Matra Bhavasavyasachi. By my arrangement, they all have been killed already, and your victory is definite. So just rise and fight and just become a instrument in my hands. But that happens in the 11th chapter, not in the first chapter or second chapter.
So until 11th chapter, Arjuna was not sure about his victory. That's what you are mentioning. As
Yeah,
a
Krishna
third
kinds
person,
of
we are
gives,
seeing.
right. Krishna gives that assurance in the 11th chapter to Arjuna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Any other questions, comments, or corrections?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, for rejecting a guru, among the different reasons, one was, if I remember correctly, you mentioned guru does not know the right or wrong, or maybe leading in the incorrect way. So how would one know if what the guru is preaching is the correct way or not? Would it be compared to what is in the scriptures? Because often we see that everything is not spelled out in the scriptures, and we would reach a guru to understand that. And most devotees would consider whatever is spoken by the Siksha Guru, Diksha Guru, or let's say Prabhupada as what is the correct way. So how would one know if that is not the correct way?
So actually, first of all, the qualifications of who can become a guru is described in the Nectar of Instruction in the first verse. Vacho vegam, manasa krodha vegam, jivha vegam, udarapastha vegam, etan veganyo vishaheta dhiraha, sarvam apimam prithvim sashishyat. So vacho vegam is one who can control the urge to speak. Manasa means the urge of mind, and krodha vegam is the urge of anger. Jivha vegam is the to taste new and new palatable things. Udar is this tummy. And then upastha is the genitals. So one who can control these 6 urges, he is qualified to accept disciples all over the world. That's how the verse comes in the Nectar of Instruction. So we can first of all consider from these perspectives that actually what is the conduct of the guru. The second part is, what is his achar and what is his prachar. So achar is his conduct, and prachar is basically what is he preaching. So preaching has to be based on Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So Guru is he himself, Sadhu and Shastra is the other thing. And if you remember, when we had this class by, who was Maharaj? I'm missing the name of Maharaj. Anyway, so Maharaj said that Shastras are the basis. Basically the foundation is the Shastra. So if the Guru is not preaching according to the Shastra, then you can understand that it's not a good preaching that he's doing. So the Shastra tells us that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is one thing. You can, if someone tells you that Krishna is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Indra is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then you can reject him. But that is like a framework that is given to us. Achar is based on what is described in NOI 1, and Prachar is based on Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra.
Not the extreme principles, Prabhu, but minor aspects like, let's say, the stipulated number of rounds or what should be eaten and not. I mean, the utmost principle might be that, follow what Krishna is saying, but the minor aspects. So if somebody is deviating from what is written in the Shastras or what is actually prescribed by the Lord himself, how would we ascertain that? We would go back to some other senior Vaishnava, or how would
So
we seek guidance there?
what do you mean by minor aspects?
As I was giving that example, right, Prabhu, that let's say initially, let's say we are in 50 years back, and some disciple of Prabhupada, he would definitely believe that Prabhupada has stipulated 16 rounds for us, so that is the right way. Or even going back when some guru had some authentic guru had mentioned that these items should be eaten on these occasions, these should not be eaten on these occasions. So how would one ascertain if that is
Okay,
on
so
the right?
actually, yeah, so the acharyas, they preach according to time, place, and circumstances. So we see that Prabhupada has given us the 4 regulative principles. Can you name those 4?
No meat eating, no intoxication, uh, no gambling, and no illicit sex.
Right. So now Prabhupada has given these 4 principles to us, and we said Prabhupada's guru, who is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he never talked about these 4. He never explicitly told his disciples that you should not do these 4 things. So why is Prabhupada talking about this? Because what happens is, at the time of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, none of these kind of people who were indulging in these kind of things, they were coming to him. Whereas Srila Prabhupada was preaching in America, where he was prominently preaching to the hippies at that time, and he started his preaching. And the only regulative principles that the hippies knew was to break the regulative principles. They broke practically all the regulative principles that are mentioned by Srila Prabhupada. So he gives these principles to them, and then he says that you cannot break these 4 regulative principles. And on top of that, if you are kind of hinting that okay, Prabhupada only gave us 16, he prescribed minimum 16 rounds of chanting, whereas Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had prescribed 64 rounds. Is that one of your subtle
Exactly,
indication?
Prabhu. So
Okay.
exactly, yeah. Some of those examples, yes.
So as I was mentioning, so the 4 regulative principle was necessary in the society in which Prabhupada was preaching, and not just hippies. We see practically in India also, most of the people nowadays are indulging in these 4 kind of things. So in today's world, if they have to accept or they have to grow spiritually, they have to accept these 4 regulative principles. We understand that why these 4 regulative principles are necessary. So I'm not going to go into the details of those 4 regulative principles. Coming to the 16 rounds and 64 rounds. So Prabhupada was a very dynamic acharya. One of the very prominent thing you will see in ISKCON society is that it is a preaching movement. It's a Brahmanical movement. There's a lot of focus on preaching, and Prabhupada also focused a lot on practical service. So he translated bhakti as a devotional service. None of the previous acharyas had translated bhakti as devotional service. They would simply translate it as devotion or divine love. That's how they had translated. But Prabhupada, when he said devotional service, so devotion is internal and service is external. When you have love for someone, you act at the material, at the practical level for that person. So when we love Krishna, then we have to act at a practical level for the service of Krishna. That's how he translated this devotional service. So he wanted his disciples to actually preach, and a lot of things had to be done. The temples were to be maintained, the books were to be distributed, books were to be published. There's so many activities, practical activities that have to be done. Now, if you can see that at least if you have to do 16 rounds, it takes approximately about 2 hours for me to complete my 16 rounds. If I have to do 64 rounds, then 8 to 9 hours I'll be chanting only. Then practically I have no other time for any other service. And then leave about service, there'll be very less time for my other activities, for my job, etc. also. So from that point of view, Prabhupada saw that, what is necessary and, how things has to be adjusted. So it is like an adjusted, adjustment that was given to us, and that was done on the insistence of some of his disciples. I forgot the names. I think Pyari Prabhu and Jiva Mataji talked about it once.
Mukunda Goswami, Prabhu. Mukunda Goswami.
Thank you, Mataji. So first, I think Prabhupada brought it down to 32 rounds, and that also was too much. And then Prabhupada said that minimum 16. I can't give you any more discount on that. So Prabhupada is an acharya. So acharya sometimes is compared to as a traffic police. So sometimes in India, you might have seen that, although the traffic signal will show red light, but the traffic police will tell you, come, go, like this, right? So like that, acharyas can adjust, not think that we can also adjust, think that, okay, Prabhupada says 16, let me do only 8. That's not how it is to be done. So there is a good reason for doing it. And that's how Prabhupada had done it.
And Prabhupada was an empowered acharya also, you know, that's why he could do it, you know. But as far as falling down, I mean, Dev Prabhu, I mean, in ISKCON itself, many acharyas have, or so-called acharyas have fallen down. It starts with subtle signs, you know, and eventually the governing body commission itself decides whether they are acharyas or not, you know. Prabhupada has established a GBC and they decide. You know, it starts with subtle differences, you know, they start wearing a different kind of garb, you know, they wear garb like monks. They start putting a cross on the, you know, on the altar and things like that. So these acharyas have slightly deviate, you know, they start with subtle deviation. Of course, they're not sometimes doing all of their rounds, you know, on a regular basis. So when they themselves, you know, fall away from what Srila Prabhupada gave them, little by little, you can tell that he's not an acharya anymore. And in ISKCON, GBC decides whether they are acharyas or not.
Right, Mataji. And for most of us, you know, at that level, we stop. We know that if Prabhupada has said something, definitely that is bona fide.
Right, right. Yeah, Prabhupada was, I mean, he was a true, you know, he exemplified the word acharya, you know. He practiced what he preached to such a great degree, you know. At the age of, you know, 70, you know, 75, 76, he was in Allahabad when he was going to the Ardha Kumbh Mela in the cold weather. He was getting up at 1:30 in the morning and going to bathe in the Ganges because he wanted his disciples to also follow his example. I mean, that was the level of practicality and achar of Srila Prabhupada, you know.
Thanks, Mataji. That explains it. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, I don't think we can start another verse now. Rasraj Prabhu, are we going to have the quiz today?
Yeah, Prabhuji, one small detail.
Yes,
You
Prabhu.
said you didn't know which Apsara was the one that cursed Arjuna. It was Urvashi in Indra's court.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Mataji. Yes, Urvashi. I was missing the name.
Yeah, in Indra's court, yeah. Because he said you're like
Yeah.
my mother, you know, because she's Indra's
Yeah.
quotation. And he Indra is his father, you know, from the mantra thing. And she was feeling amorous towards him. She was looking at him as a man and he's looking at it as a mother. So she got offended and she cursed him to that eunuch state.
Ancestors of Arjuna had married Urvashi also. So what happens is the earthly men, they will have a short life, but these heavenly damsels, they will have a very long life, 72
Yeah,
yugas,
that also
Mahayugas
is
they
one
will
of
live.
the reasons. But he was looking at her in a
So-
motherly figure here.
Right. So
Are we having the quiz today?
yes, that's what I think
Yes.
Prabhuji said. So go ahead, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Okay, I have received only 5 out of 21. Hopefully the questions are not hard. All right, we have more 30 seconds. Please finish your submission. All right, I'm going to close the quiz. Okay, now I'm going to share. Ganpati Gunpru, you want to speak the answers?
Oh, I don't see the poll. Okay, yeah, now I can see. Okay.
Can you talk of
what?
the answer?
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, what are the qualifications for liberation? So, according to what I understood, is devotion. And what are the qualities that make Arjuna fit for
No,
liberation?
Prabhu. Actually, I'm taking all this question from purport. In the purport, in 2.6, Prabhupada says that what are the qualifications for liberation? Control senses, knowledge, and devotion. These three are required in the purport.
Oh, so these are multiple choice answers?
Yes, multiple choice.
Okay,
if you see
okay.
the
I was not
multi-choice,
able to. How do I know? Okay, multiple choice. Okay, yeah. Then you are right, because, but one of the important elements there is no, that Krishna, sorry, Arjuna had complete faith in Krishna's words. That's what Prabhupada also says in the same purport. Faith in Krishna's words, and that is the most important element.
Devotion. So
In
this
the same
that
purport.
comes in a second question.
Okay. What are the qualities make Arjuna fit for liberation? Yeah, so he was a great devotee of the Lord, highly enlightened, great warrior, student of Dronacharya, complete control of mind and senses, desire to live by begging, strong faith in Krishna's instruction, and all of the above. Yeah, so here the most important part is strong faith in Krishna's instructions. He is highly enlightened, that is true, and he was a great devotee of the Lord. Any other things that were mentioned there, Prabhu?
Complete control of mind and senses
Mind
also
and
mentioned,
senses.
and desire
Okay.
to live by begging, that is also mentioned in the purport. So except great warrior, student of Dronacharya, he is the brother of Yudhishthira, and all of the that's not correct. Rest all the correct choice.
Okay, what is the fifth reason for Arjuna not to fight? That is indecisiveness. That is right.
Yes.
Okay, then we have, how does Krishna call Arjuna to chastise him? Multiple choice. This is klebyam. And the other word that he uses is dorbalyam is there. Hridaya dorbalyam. And then he says anarya, aswargam, and akirtikaram. Yeah, so actually all of the above. But he also says shudram, which is not in these options. So I think all of the above would be the right option here.
Okay.
What are the different names given by different acharyas of second chapter? This is also, so content of the Gita summarized is right. Atma, Anatma, Vivek Yoga is right. Sankhya Yoga is right. And rest of the things are not correct. Then we have, what is the name of Vijay commentary by Madhusudan Chakravarti? That is Gudarth Deepika, the first option. What are the different translation given by other acharyas for the word bhakti? Not Prabhupada, multiple choice. So devotion and divine love, that's what I mentioned.
Yes,
And Prabhupada says devotional service.
Not Prabhupada, so.
Right.
Prabhupada,
Yeah, devotion and
Krishna.
divine love would be
Divine love.
correct answers. Then who is the acharya compared with traffic police?
Yes. Okay. Thank you everyone for participating in the quiz. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Hare
One
Krishna.
Thank you. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha ananta koti vaishnavrinda ki jai.
Ki jai.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Guru jai.
Ganpati Govind Prabhu ki jai.